Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners of Frederick County, welcome to our September 11th tribute and Patriots Day commemoration. Our commemoration today is being recorded and may be seen on Frederick County Government Channel 19, as well as watched anytime on the Frederick County Government websites. Would you please note the exits to the building in the event of an emergency, and also we please ask that you turn off your cell phones or put them on page. Thank you. Good afternoon, and on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners of Frederick County, welcome to our September 11th tribute, Patriots Day, September 11th, 2012. Please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Frederick County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard and Division of Fire Rescue Services Honor Guard, and remain standing until after the invocation. At this time, we'll have the National Anthem, sung by Angela Spencer, Frederick County Sheriff's Office, Community Services Division.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Will you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll have the invocation by Reverend Tim May, chaplain of the Independent Hose Company.
In peace, let us pray. We lift our eyes to the mountains, from whence comes our help. Our help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and who made earth. Our Lord, our God, comfort our hearts and encourage our lives. And as we remember this day as a day of hurt and sorrow, of pain and suffering, but this also is a day of healing. We pray for those loved ones who have entered into glory and pray your strength and presence in the lives of their families and of their friends. Let us find peace in the knowledge that for those who perished that day were never alone, but were with you, to receive them and comfort them and hold them in your protective arms. You lifted them to heaven. May they hear our prayers, and may their memories forever keep them alive in our hearts. For those that day and this day who wear the uniform of courage, of service, and of blessing, of God, we are a nation of believers. We believe in you, O Lord. We believe in freedom and in peace. Freedom is a gift from God that must be believed, honored, and protected. Peace is God's greatest gift. It must be first in our hearts and then in our world. Today we receive your peace and proclaim it as our badge of life. May those this day who serve for our lives in the United States of America know your presence, and may those who have offered a calling of sacrifice of service to others keep them in your peace and in your mercy. May God the Father, the peace which is beyond all understanding, abide in us this day and all of our days. May God continue to love and to bless the United States of America. All God's people then say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. And please, let's give a round of applause to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard, Angela Spencer, and DFRS Honor Guard. Thank you so very much. Once again, welcome to our tribute to commemorate 9/11. I'm Chip Jewell, Director of Emergency Communications, and it's an honor to once again serve as your Master of Ceremonies. We would like to welcome many elected officials here today and thank them for their attendance. Also like to thank the Independent Hose Company for hosting it and also for the display. And you'll note behind me, we have active running gear of the personnel of this station. But there's one place missing. That's the missing firefighter in honor of those that died on 9/11. At this time, I'd like to introduce the President of the Board of County Commissioners, Blaine Young. We will not forget.
If I could ask the members of the Board of Commissioners to join me. The Vice President of the Board, Paul Smith, is here. Commissioner Billy Shreve, Commissioner David Gray, and Commissioner Kirby DeLauder. Also want to thank the many personnel that are here from the city and county, and also the folks here from Fort Detrick. On behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I want to thank you for joining us for our September 11th tribute. We have a very special program today, and I would first and foremost like to begin by thanking President Marty Fuller, Chief Rodney Masser, and the members of the Independent Hose Company #1 for hosting this remembrance at their station. I have a nice round of applause for these folks that are volunteering their time. And this has been because for the past 10 years, the Board of County Commissioners has hosted this remembrance at Winchester Hall in downtown Frederick, which is the seat of Frederick County government. But from now on, we will hold the ceremony at different fire stations in the county to allow us to showcase the outstanding personnel, equipment, and services of each one. And I think we all, I can say, as the Board of County Commissioners, very, very pleased with the turnout that we have today. 11 years ago, September 11th, 2001, terrorists hijacked 4 planes and used them to destroy major American institutions. The terrorists deliberately crashed 2 of the planes into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center and a 3rd plane into the Pentagon. After learning of the other attacks, passengers and crew members on the 4th plane attempted to commandeer control, and the plane crashed into an empty field in western Pennsylvania. As President George W. Bush said on that fateful day, quote, "Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist attacks. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of horror and terror." Quote, "Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended." Nearly 3,000 people were killed that day, the single largest loss of life from a foreign attack on American soil. We join with all Americans and all of you in Frederick County stating that we will not forget what happened on 9/11. We owe it to our children, to explain what happened and how they need to be ever grateful for the land we love, the land of the free and the brave, and for all of you all that protect it. And they need to remember so to be vigilant to thwart any future attacks on our beloved country. We all have memories of that day. Many people probably remember what they were doing that morning when they heard the news and what the day was like as things kept happening and being reported in the news. Myself at the time, I was serving as an alderman in the city of Frederick, and I never forget that morning walking in to Mayor Jim Grimes' office, and every morning I walked in and said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, the World Trade Center has been hit by an airplane." At that time, people thought it was an accident. I was in the office when the second plane hit in his office, and I remember, never forget Mayor Jim Grimes saying, "This isn't an accident." And then obviously the news started unfolding. Commissioner Gray then was serving as president of the Board of County Commissioners. In Frederick County, the pain and loss of loved ones were felt in a very personal way. We pay tribute to Alan Linton Jr., Michael Carlo, who perished on that tragic day. Our hearts and prayers continue to go out to their family and friends. Their lives will stand as testimony to the American spirit of freedom. Let us also remember the fire station that played a key role in recovery at the Pentagon on that day. The Woodsboro Volunteer Fire Department in its 1955 B model Mack truck with the 65-foot ladder. Because the vehicle has no roof and sits lower than other fire trucks, which allowed it to enter the narrow Pentagon tunnels. We must never forget the people from all walks of life who died on September 11th. We are also never forget the public safety heroes, the first responders, law enforcement, military, who went above and beyond the call of duty, average Americans that just did incredible heroic acts for their fellow man and woman. They're all represented in this audience today and at many other tributes going on across the county. Lastly, let us recognize the hero who put their lives on the line for our nation every day. Again, those in the military, fire and rescue services, law enforcement, hospital workers, healthcare officials, Red Cross, and many other organizations who stand ready in case of a crisis, small or large, like 9/11. They deserve our support and our gratitude. Let's not wait till another event like 9/11 to show our appreciation. Let them know now that we appreciate the selfless acts they perform every day on our behalf. And if I can have a round of applause for all those folks that are here in that capacity. The Board of County Commissioners urges all citizens to pause in their activities for a moment of remembrance today if you have not already done so. After the ceremony, we will proceed in silence to the front of Independent Hose for a time of silence together. Our prayers and our reflections are important, so we never forget those who lost their lives on that tragic day. Now I invite my colleagues to join with me in the reading of the proclamation, the Patriot Day Proclamation. I've asked the Vice President of the Board, Paul Smith, to read this for us.
Whereas September 11, 2001 was etched into America's memory when 19 terrorists attacked us with barbarity unequaled in our history. On Patriot Day, we cherish the memory of thousands of innocent victims lost, extend our thoughts and prayers to their families, and honor the heroic men and women who risked and sacrificed their lives so that others might survive. And whereas we remember September 11, 2001, we reaffirm the vows made in the earliest hours of our grief and anger. As liberty's home and defender, America will not tire, will not falter, and will not fail in fighting for the safety and security of the American people and a world free from terrorism. And whereas 11 years ago, ordinary citizens rose to the challenge, united in prayer, and responded with extraordinary acts of courage, with some giving their lives for the country they loved. On Patriot Day, we remember all those who were taken from us in an instant and seek their lasting memorial in a safer and more hopeful world. We must not allow our resolve to be weakened by the passage of time. We will meet the test that history has given us and continue to fight to rid the world of terrorism and promote liberty around the globe. Now therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Frederick County hereby proclaim September 11, 2012 to be Patriot Day in Frederick County, Maryland, and we do commend this observance to all of our citizens, signed by us, the Board of County Commissioners.
If I could have President Fuller, Marty, Chief Master, if you want to come up here and present this to you. Thank you for all you all do here. Thank you. There you go. And then we'll get a quick picture of where Robin is. Come on, guys. Over on this side there, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioners. At this time, we'll have reflections of September 11th from Sheriff Chuck Jenkins, Frederick County Sheriff.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out. And Commissioner Young, you and I need to start comparing notes before we speak at the same events. But anyway, I am going to reflect a little bit and also talk about where we are, where we have been, and where we're headed in this country. I am disappointed. Again, the building's not full. I would have hoped we'd had a packed house here today, but thank you all for being here and taking your time. 11 years ago today, of course, our life has not been the same since. My first duty and privilege today is to thank our military currently serving around the world, fighting these missions against terrorism. Colonel, Command Sergeant Major, thank you for being here. I also extend my sympathy and remembrance to the Frederick County families of Alan Linton and Michael Carlo, again, two victims of 9/11. Since 9/11, we have embarked on a mission to seek and destroy terrorism around the globe in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and beyond. They have now become our longest lasting conflicts in American history. Rather than recount the horrific acts of terrorism that Commissioner Young cited, that's ingrained in all of us. I'm going to recount what we have done since and how it's important that we remember these events every single day, not just one day a year. As a result of the events of 9/11, Homeland Security was born into law enforcement and public safety, and has now become a major role for law enforcement and state and local governments. It has become the primary mission of our military around the globe. The basis for the creation of Homeland Security was, in fact, a criminal act of terrorism committed against this government, against our society, to influence or coerce our government into another way of life. The problem that I see over the course of this last 11 years is that Homeland Security, which was originally very focused, has now become nothing more than a political buzz phrase, and we really started to lose our effectiveness. Intelligence, information sharing, and preparedness at the federal, state, and local levels is the umbrella of security that protects our society every day. Over time, we have learned just how vulnerable we really are. We all have to understand that America is in a long-term war for survival. Even though we are drawing down and withdrawing our military from our current conflicts, this fight, I'm afraid, is going to last for generations. The threat we face is a radical ideology with a single goal of achieving Muslim domination around the globe, including America. If you look across to the countries in Europe, they're currently facing that threat. It's happening now, primarily in England, Northern Europe. That same ideology is quietly entrenching itself here in America, and we are doing very little to stop it. We have to convince our elected leaders at all levels of government to recognize and stop this threat to our national security. We as Americans will not admit and don't realize that our open and unchecked borders are the single biggest threat to our national security. We refuse to identify non-U.S. citizens walking the streets of America. We have a federal government and Department of Homeland Security that refuses to force our immigration laws and remove those in this country illegally. Very honestly, I think this country lacks leadership. Because we're a weak and failing economy, we're now looking at reducing and weakening our military forces, leaving us even more vulnerable. Colonel, Command Sergeant Major, you have your hands full facing the pending threats of reductions. Since 9/11, law enforcement authorities in the United States have uncovered a number of terrorist plots and have foiled several bombing attempts on our soil. We've identified many terrorist cells entrenched on our soil. We've eliminated Osama bin Laden. We've destroyed a number of terrorist cells around the world. But yet we still face a lot of problems here. 2009, a shooting by a lone gunman at Fort Hood, Texas, claimed 13 killed and 25 wounded American soldiers. That seems to have been forgotten. The shooter is since known to be an Islamic extremist entrenched in our military. All of this should concern everyone in this room and every American. Where do we stand 11 years after 9/11? I think things have improved greatly in terms of security, but there is a lot of work to do. We have improved some communications and information sharing, protection of critical infrastructure and soft targets, and probably flying in America is a little bit safer. Here in Frederick County, I'm really proud of where we're at. We've improved our standing in emergency preparedness. At the local level, we've taken steps to be prepared as much as possible to deal with such threats or events. We in leadership roles in law enforcement and public safety understand that first responders and law enforcement, fire rescue are the ones on the front line if and when we are targeted in the future. Again, here in Frederick County, all entities of public safety and local law enforcement have stepped up to the table with both immediate and strategic response plans. These agencies include the Sheriff's Office, Maryland State Police, the City of Frederick Police, Brunswick Police, Thurmont Police, DFRS Career and Volunteer, Emergency Communications, and Emergency Management, along with our other critical divisions such as Department of Public Works, Highway Department, Streets and Roads. Everything we do at county and municipal government is critical and vital to the way we live our lives here in Frederick County. And I'll point to the recent G8 event at Camp David here in Frederick County as the best example that I can give, demonstrating what we've accomplished over that 11 years and our ability to plan, prepare, and respond to an event. Much different than a 9/11 event, but nonetheless outstanding coordination and response by all agencies involved. So I'll just end my thoughts, and again, Commissioner Young, you probably said half of what I was going to say, but I'll simply end my thoughts here this morning by honoring and remembering our firefighters, our law enforcement across this country, here locally, because what we do from here out, we will be on the front lines. We need to remember the 2,974 Americans who died during the 9/11 attacks. Those numbers included 403 firefighters and police officers. I'll honor again the military, who have lost thousands of dead and wounded over the course of the past decade in two major conflicts. Both wars are a direct result of the 9/11 attacks. My salute to all of you in law enforcement, public safety, the military. Let's not forget our threats. Let's not forget where we're at, the work we have to do going forward, and I do believe that we can remain the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Remember this date every day. Let's not make it a once-a-year series on the History Channel. Let's live this. And I'll just end by saying God bless each and every one of you. God bless this great nation, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sheriff. At this time, we'll have Marty Fuller, President of the Independent Hose Company, and Rodney Masser, Chief of the Independent Hose Company, for a welcome and their reflections.
First of all, I'd like to thank the members of the military, the firefighters, and the police officers for what they do every day to keep us safe and allow us to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to the Independent Hose Company. We are very fortunate to carry the title of Maryland's oldest volunteer fire department in continuous service. We were founded in 1818. I would also like to thank the BOCC for inviting our company to host this year's ceremony. The tragic events that occurred on September 11, 2001 forever changed the mindset of firefighters and police officers. I was very fortunate to have had a career as a firefighter for almost 28 years. I love my job and always considered going to work as a firefighter just another day at the office, no matter how the severity was of the call. I had just gotten off my 24-hour shift in Montgomery County on the morning of September 11th. I went by our training academy to complete a few tasks. When the tragic events on that day began to unfold and a plane hit the Pentagon building, the word "just another day at the office" changed for me. I was placed on mandatory callback at the time. I was told to get my gear and other items that I would be going to D.C. after a debriefing at Station 6 on Wisconsin Avenue. At that time, numerous fighter jets flew over our training academy, vibrating the buildings. The term fright would be what I was feeling at this point. I did make 2 trips to the Pentagon that day. The sights that day will never leave my mind. After all said and done, I was very fortunate. I was able to go home to my family the next day. Hundreds of firefighters, law enforcement officers were not as fortunate as me. They never came home that day. They all will be forever in our thoughts and prayers. Once again, I'd like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for carrying on this annual event. This ceremony each year is just a small token of our appreciation to those who gave the supreme sacrifice on September 11, 2001. We will never forget.
Good afternoon. I echo the sentiments of the Sheriff and Board of County Commissioners and President Fuller and the military. They're here. Our thoughts go out to them every day as they carry on their mission. Welcome everyone to Independent Host Company. This is a fabulous turnout. On a lighter note, Marty said we're going to do a little 9/11 service at the department. I said good. I had no clue it was this magnitude, and I want to thank Marty and Robin for doing a fantastic job here today. I think they did an outstanding job, and everything looks great, from the station to the apparatus, the food that we're going to enjoy later. So I want to thank Robin and Marty first. Again, thank you for attending today's memorial service at the Independent Host Company. Honestly, I didn't really think much about this until last night. I got Robin's email with the format, and I didn't realize, again, the magnitude of this ceremony today. So I called Marty from work, and we spoke a little bit, and he gave me a little heads up of what to expect. But I usually attend a 9/11 ceremony at work. Today, I'm happy that we were able to have one in Frederick County, Maryland, so it was a pleasant surprise. I want to thank the Board of Frederick County Commissioners for allowing this event to occur here, and I think it's a great step forward. 11 years, Commissioner Chief, it's a little late, but hey, better late than never, and we'll move on and do this in the future. So that's a great thing. I was asked to reflect on the events of 9/11 and how the fire service was affected by it and what was changed since. I guess reflection is a word that provokes many thoughts to each individual. I know for me and all of us here today and all the Americans that September 11, 2001 forever changed our world. Just as the fateful day of December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor Day, defined the greatest generation, September 11th has undeniably shaped who we are, how we live our daily lives, and what we believe in today. As many of you know, my other job is a career firefighter in Virginia. That morning, 11 years ago, was much like today. Bright, sunny, and beautiful. I too reported for duty that morning, quickly became entrenched in the news on TV at the station. As the events unfolded in New York, it was soon thereafter that I would too be responding to a tragedy at the Pentagon. The day turned into days and weeks and forever changed me in the fire service. I returned home this morning from duty on a day much like that one 11 years ago, only different. I thought about today's ceremony and what I would talk about. When I got home, I did my routine and read many words from friends, colleagues, and those remembering 9/11 through emails and such. They should be standing here today, for their words are far more meaningful than what I can express. One of the emails was from a friend, Joel, from whom I worked with for several years before he returned home to New York and fulfilled his dream of working for FDNY. Joel is the exemplary firefighter. He's the hometown volunteer, career FDNY employee, and one of the best instructors in the fire service today. He also works at Rescue 1 in New York, and on that day, he lost 11 of his brothers at the tower. I think about a man named Captain Dean Ekman. This is a name not mentioned often and not named by many. Captain Dean Ekman is a member of the 119th Fighter Wing, the Happy Hooligans, from the North Dakota Air National Guard. He flew the first F-16 over the skies of D.C. that morning, and the thunderous sound of the plane speeding to defend our nation's capital was one I will never forget. At the end of that day, 11 years ago, nearly 3,000 people were gone. The most lives lost on American soil in a single day since the Battle of Antietam. Ultimately, more than 400 firefighters and police officers gave their lives. Firefighters, police officers who took an oath to protect and serve the public no matter the circumstances. Think about the courage of those firefighters and police officers who rushed into the two burning towers to bring thousands to safety. Think about the countless hours devoted to the recovery operations at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the Pennsylvania site. The firefighter is often defined by an innate ability to reach out and help others, even in the times of unthinkable crisis and unfathomable odds. But we too must learn from these horrific events and from the fateful September day. The fire service was taken back that day not only from the loss of many brothers and sisters, but by the challenges of what we as first responders must accomplish moving forward. This new battle was brought to us. We learned many lessons, and in fact, we had to change the way we did business, period. Yes, it wasn't just about fighting fires anymore. We now had the threat of terrorism, chemical warfare, and others were added to the list. We learned that yes, we were at fault for becoming complacent and not being vigilant at all times in our duties. We learned that we must work together, train together as first responders. That includes fire, law enforcement, military, local, state, and federal agencies included. There was no more I. We made words such as interoperability, anti-terrorism, teamwork, a household word. We developed and adopted programs such as National Incident Management System so that we could communicate across agency lines and speak the same language and manage our resources better. We standardized equipment, including items such as radios, SCBA, and PPE, allowing us to not only help our community, but each other in our own emergencies. We drafted common policies and procedures so that we could all work more closely and safely together. We were forced to close our neighborhood firehouse doors and lock them for fear that some stranger may do us or our friends harm. But most of all, we learned that the public did care about us and will support us. They will work hard to raise funds and vote to support our years of neglect and keep us in their prayers at night. Yes, the road has been long and tough for us all, but we are not done driving yet. We must continue to work together and build upon the last 11 years. We must work as partners in the fire service. It does not matter volunteer or career. Yes, like many, I am proud to be a volunteer and donate my time to Frederick County and Independent Host Company. And we too still need your help. Please keep supporting the fire service. Volunteer in your community. We need assistance in every capacity and at all levels. I ask that as you leave the ceremony today, please remember and never forget. Appreciate our freedoms, count our blessings, strive to help our fellow man, and cherish our family and friends. President George W. Bush said, "For those of us who live through these events, the only marker we'll ever need is the tick of the clock at the 46th minute, the 8th hour of the 11th day." Thank you, and God bless America.
I'd like to personally thank both Chief Master, President Fuller, not only for those words of personal reflection, but certainly for the opportunity to be here and the hospitality of the Independent Host Company. And I think we should give a round of applause for both of these individuals and the Independent Host Company for the day. At this time, I'd like to introduce Director Tom Owens, Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue Services, Heroes in Action.
Thank you, Chip. Good afternoon. There's been an awful lot said about the events of that day, and a lot to do with not only the tragedies that occurred, but certainly what happened during the aftermath. And I thought for my comments I would actually share a bit of my personal story about 9/11 and the interesting connection that it ended up having to Frederick County, Maryland. On 9/11/2001, I was serving as the Assistant Fire Chief of Operations in the city of Fairfax, Virginia. I was in my office watching the events unfold in New York City when I literally felt a jolt. I didn't know it at the time, but in very short order, the next news flash on the television was that a plane had hit the Pentagon. It was the jolt that I felt with my office some 12 miles away from where the plane impacted the building. Almost at the same time, the first mutual aid box alarm was being dispatched, and city units were being turned out to go to both the Pentagon as well as to backfill fire stations in Arlington County. My first action was to begin immediate recall of our off-duty forces so that we could staff our reserve apparatus in the city in order to keep the city of Fairfax covered during what was surely to be a significant event. At the time, the city fire chief had been out of the area, but as soon as he returned, I headed to the Pentagon myself. When I arrived, the sight was surreal. There was a commercial plane crash, a mass casualty incident, the partial collapse of a 5-story building, and 3 5-story buildings on fire, all occurring simultaneously. I reported to the incident commander. Early on, was given a number of assignments in support of the incident commander, and we reached a point in time in the operation where the initial command officers were being relieved. At that point, I was assigned to become the commander of the A&E division. The Pentagon is a series of 5 rings, each ring of 5-story buildings. They are lettered A through E, which is where the designation for the forward command area came from. The plane had impacted the E ring, which is the outermost, and penetrated both the D ring and the C ring before reaching its final point of disintegration. A&E Division Command was set up in the inner courtyard of the Pentagon. And as I approached the command area and relieved the officer on duty, our briefing was almost unbelievable in terms of the description of the work that still needed to be done in those buildings, even hours and hours into the operation. One of our biggest challenges was a roof fire that was burning in the built-up roof on all 3 of the buildings that were impacted. We had crews working to try to dig that fire out. It's one of the toughest fires you can try to get to is in a built-up roof. We reached a point as night began to fall, and it was pretty clear that it had become too dangerous to keep our crews working at that overnight. And so the incident commander made the decision and relayed that we would simply put heavy streams in place and try to hold that roof fire in check until the next morning. At that point, I assessed our resources. We only had 1 ladder truck working from the inner courtyard. And interesting that because of the low clearance in the tunnel, the crew of that ladder truck actually stopped outside the Pentagon and took a saw and cut the steel tiller cage completely off of a brand new ladder truck that had just been delivered in order to get it through the tunnel to access the interior courtyard. I knew there were no more vehicles immediately available that would fit that bill. And so the message went from the Arlington County EOC out to other jurisdictions. We needed a ladder truck that had 10-foot height or less in order to get through that tunnel. First, the Kentland Volunteer Fire Department showed up from Prince George's County, Maryland with their tower ladder. They thought they could make it. The chief finally reported to me that the only option they had available was to let all the air out of their tires and drive on the rims in order to try to get through the tunnel. I refused this idea, my fear being they would throw a tread and then completely block the tunnel and we'd not be able to get any other apparatus through. Word came that they had located a ladder truck, and it was en route from Frederick, Maryland. On arrival, Woodsboro's 1955 Mack ladder truck drove through the tunnel with ease. and into the inner courtyard and into their assigned position. It's where I first met Chief Mickey Fyock and his crew of 5 volunteers from Woodsboro that came to the Pentagon to go to work. Now you can imagine how this group of people from Woodsboro must have felt. This is probably the largest operational fire rescue theater in the metropolitan Washington area's history. And Woodsboro showed up, they went to work without fail. Mickey came to my command area, received his instructions, understood exactly what the goal was we were trying to accomplish, and he and his crew went to work, and literally in a matter of minutes, their master stream device was in place with water supply being received from an engine company from Washington, D.C. For the next 12 hours, Woodsboro's crew would maintain their steady stream that helped hold that roof fire in check throughout the night. When the heavy streams were finally shut down, the crew from Woodsboro simply packed up their gear and headed back to Frederick, Maryland. They came and did their job. I had a chance to speak with them before they left. I was not only impressed by their good work, but as I talked with Chief Fyock and his crew before they took up and headed home, it was very clear to see the pride the Woodsboro volunteers had. Proud that they were called to help, proud of the work that they did while they were there to help, and proud to have contributed to a great effort that fateful day. Woodsboro Fire Company's efforts did not go unnoticed, and last year during the 9/11 ceremony at the Pentagon, Vice President Joe Biden publicly acknowledged their service during that ceremony. As Mickey Fyock stated, Woodsboro had the little truck that could. And although I wish the circumstances were different, I had the opportunity to witness the little truck and its crew that did. Thank you all for coming. We're starting to see already in so many communities this day being overlooked. But it should not pass without significance. And all of us taking the time to pause and not only reflect, but as the sheriff said, everyone needs to appreciate our work is far from done. There is still much to do, and it must be done as a community. Thank you all again.
And for your efforts. And ladies and gentlemen, I think you heard today by the people that spoke, Frederick County will not forget. Let's give everyone a round of applause that's here today. Now would you please rise to retire the colors from the Frederick County Division of Fire and Rescue Services Honor Guard. It is appropriate that our commemoration this year is held in the quarters of the oldest volunteer fire company in the state of Maryland, the Independent Hose Company No. 1. The Independent Hose Company is truly a model of the dedication and commitment of our nation's fire service. Our nation's fire departments have always risen when our nation's security has been threatened. The many uniforms of our emergency services, fire, EMS, and law enforcement stand as centurions in our towns and cities throughout America every day. The many branches of our military stand watch guarding our freedoms throughout the world, often in harm's way. Today we ask God's blessing on the thousands of innocent patriots that perished 11 years ago, and we ask our God to continue to bless the thousands of patriots that protect us each day. May God bless America. Will you please join me as we retire the colors to the front of the Independent Hose Company for a moment of reflection.
Please join us and proceed to the front of the Independent Hose Company in silence.